Hey, everybody, I'm Scott Linebrink, your host of Get in the Game podcast, where we talk about what it means to live a life of service and to actively engage our faith, get off the sidelines and get in the game. And I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Craig Kimbrel. Craig, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. You and I played together a long time ago, back when I was the old veteran and you were the young buck coming up. And now we've kind of switched places a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah, I guess it's been a while. It's my turn to do those kind of things. I'm very appreciative of the things I think we were talking earlier. Of the things you did for me. I mean, we're obviously still sitting here talking today for a reason. I guess I liked you a little bit when you're a veteran. You weren't too rough on me, and but no, like you said, being in that spot now, you obviously you care about those guys that are coming up because shoot, we were there not too long ago, and it happens really fast. So,
It
um,
does.
yeah, here we are sitting on the podcast. Can't say I've done a ton of them, but when you came ringing and asked me to do it, I said, here we go. Why not?
Well, I do so appreciate your time and just the chance to catch up. I wanted to introduce you a little bit to folks that may not know about your storied career, and it is quite storied. When I think about, I was with you your rookie year, and you won Rookie of the Year that year back in 2011. But you have a 16-year career. You're still going. You played for 8 teams. You've won a World Series with the Red Sox, nine-time All-Star, two-time reliever of the year. One of only 8 pitchers to have 400 saves. And again, you're still racking those up. So, in my opinion, you're a guy that's headed for the Hall of Fame. And I know you don't necessarily rush towards the accolades or need any attention like that. But that's one of the things that I appreciate about you is you're a humble man and you genuinely care for others. And I love watching the way you go about your business.
Well, I appreciate that, and there's a lot of kind words, and when it comes to all the things I've been able to do. I feel very blessed by those things. I learned through every single year that I've been in the game. They've all been different in many different cities with many different jerseys. But embraced it and enjoyed all of it because it's all different. But we walk through life in different steps for reasons to learn from different people at different times. And to have been able to see so much of the world and playing a game has been pretty cool. And when you talk about doing things for others, like, man, when you get to a certain point, you realize it is about doing things for other people, and you get a lot of enjoyment from it, especially if you see it change their lives. And that's what life's about, right?
That's right. Well said. Craig, when you think back over 16 years, I mean, that's a long time. And you mentioned all the different teams, places you played, and, playing for the Dodgers and the Red Sox and, Phillies. I mean, you played for some really, cool teams, storied franchises. But what are some stories that stick out to you over those years?
Honestly, when you ask stories about all the teams, and like I think a lot of people would think you think about games or moments in games or um, like big wins and things like that. But honestly, a lot of the things that I think back on when I think about the teams I play for are like a lot of the guys that I played with.
Mm, yeah.
Like I don't think about playing with the Dodgers, which wasn't that many years ago, and think about, we won the division and I was on a very good team, and but I really think about the guys that were on that team and where they are now and what they're doing. And even if I haven't kept up with them through text or whatnot, it's not the actual what we did on the field as much sometimes it is like who was in the clubhouse.
That's right. Do you have any heroes that you got to meet while you're out playing?
Yeah, a ton of them. Hey, baby.
I see one of your heroes back there, Lydia.
Yeah, she is one of my biggest. Yeah, that's my daughter Lydia.
That's awesome.
Um, but when it comes to heroes in the game, yeah, I mean, I got up at such a young age that I got to play with and against a lot of guys that I grew up saying, "Man, look at them." They were at the end of their career and played really long careers, and one of them was Chipper Jones.
Hmm.
Growing up in Alabama, and the Braves being the team. getting to play a couple of years with him and getting to play a half a season under Bobby Cox, which a legendary manager who everyone knows who Bobby Cox is because
Hmm.
it's not just the great numbers that he did, but the great man he is. Well, I remember your name if he hadn't seen you in 15 years, which
Mm.
is that's everybody, and which is a talent and something to respect. But getting to play with him, for him was pretty cool. Younger in my career because I mean I grew up in the South and wanted to be a Brave, so getting to spend time there, I checked off a lot of those boxes pretty early, being in the organization and rooting for him my whole life. So those boxes were checked off pretty quick the first couple of years in the league.
Craig, you talk about the guys that you played with and just how you enjoyed being a teammate, and you were a guy right from the start that I could tell exhibited a lot of great qualities of a teammate. But what has baseball taught you, and what would you teach some of these younger guys about what does it mean to be a good teammate?
Man, I think it's a pretty loaded question. I think at times it's just, learning the person. Um, I think a lot of times you want to, have a structure or have a way, how things should be. But one thing I've learned over the course of my career is everyone is completely different. How guys handle things is different. Where their mind is, where they are in their life really matters. So it's really understanding that person and caring about who that person is, not as much as about what's coming out of them and maybe what might be frustrated with, but you can't be a good teammate if you're trying to tell someone what to do the first time you meet them, right?
Hmm.
You kind of have to understand who they are before you start telling them. You can tell them what to do or give suggestions of what to do because you care about them, not just because you feel they need to be doing something different. I mean, that takes time. Like you can't do that right off the bat.
Well, one thing's for sure, throughout the course of 162 games and spring training and playoffs, we do have a lot of time to get to know people, don't we?
Oh, we do way too much. I mean, we see our teammates more than we do our families during the year, which is tough. And I mean, the teams do and have started making it a lot easier to bring families in and kids in, which makes things a lot easier. Um, but yeah, we spend way more time with those guys than we do our family during the year.
Craig, I know you to be a quiet guy. You live on a farm in the middle of the country, and you're not a big city guy. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to you because I have a lot of those same propensities myself. But how do you navigate living in the spotlight and being under, such scrutiny all the time when really all you want to do is just go back and sit in a deer stand?
Well, I wouldn't say it's all about being in the woods, but I mean it's enjoyable. I think it's all about being able to do therapeutic things. Getting in the woods is pretty therapeutic for me at times. The weather's right. If I'm not out there freezing, and but even sometimes if I am, you get to see some beautiful things out there and some things that you really start to see and understand that only God can do, and only God can create this entire world, make it work so well together. And like it's not by accident; it's 100% on purpose, and it's very easy to see when you're out there in the woods. So, um, I don't get out there as much as I want to nowadays, especially with the two kids running around. But it is nice to be able to walk out in the front yard and be in it just for a little bit. Um, yeah, on that, you got me thinking about the woods, so I want to get out there now. But I enjoy cities. I mean, for a couple days, I think, I think at times, having the separator from it. We talked earlier about being in the biggest cities for multiple months of the year, and not really getting out of them. It is nice to separate and get out here in the woods away from the noise. But at times it's a little too much. So there's a good separator in there. I like the city for a day or two, but it's always nice to come back home and slow things down a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned God in your life. Can you talk about your introduction to God and why your faith has been so formative?
Yeah, I think my story is a lot like others. I grew up kind of around a church. It became there were families at church that we could hang out with, so we would go. It didn't really resonate on me like what was being taught, what was being preached. We all kind of have an understanding, but you can only if you can only hear it if you want to listen to it. So that was me for quite a while. Met my beautiful wife. She introduced me to it. Still, struggle, understanding, learning. Really, it wasn't really to me, and you don't want to, put hardships on it. But I got to see a lot of amazing. Mm. Mm.
Mm,
I got to see a lot of amazing things happen.
mm, yeah. Yeah, God
I mean,
definitely.
it's been 7 years.
Mm,
But my daughter was born and she walked through a lot, had heart issues, and we've talked about this. It's hard to think back on it at times, especially in this setting. We're talking about like what opened, my heart, my wife's heart. And it was definitely hers.
mm. Yeah, God has a way of speaking to us in and
But
through
yeah,
struggles.
yeah, here, let me get back in it and
Yeah.
just about it before she busts through the door. Um, But yeah, she went through a lot of hardships in her life, and sitting there with it and understanding that God puts us in places where we're supposed to be at the exact right time. I had recently been traded away from Atlanta, went to San Diego, and then traded from San Diego to Boston. And then that's where my daughter was born. One of the best hospitals for what she was dealing with in pretty much the world. Um, so you think of like being in the right place at the right time, like
Mm,
the things that like playing a game of baseball did for me, and it allowed me to have, but also putting our family in the right place. Like I never thought I was going to be there. 2 years prior, I thought I was going to be in Atlanta my whole life, and then 2 years later, we're sitting in a city that we needed to be in, and that allowed me to continue to do what I love and have the one I love get the best care she could
mm.
in the entire world. So, and that cannot happen. That wasn't happenstance. We want a lot of answers, and this is a tough thing too because there's so many families that are put in that exact situation that don't get the happiness out of it, like which is kind of hard to talk about sometimes because we can talk about it and be have happy cheers about it, but there's so many people that don't,
Yeah.
and so it's a situation that like even thinking back on it, like feel very blessed
Mm,
to have her come in and run my life, which
mm.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
She definitely runs every aspect of where we go, but her brother's catching up too, so that's good as well.
Craig, thank you so much for sharing that. Just that honesty and transparency of,
Mhm.
how struggles can often be a very difficult time in our life, but how there's real beauty in them. And I know that to be true myself. That there's often
Mhm.
times, thinking back over the first half of my life and the way that I would have wanted it to go, and if God would have allowed me to write the script, I probably would have written it a lot differently and avoided some of the
Mhm.
pain and the struggles. But you're right; it's some of those very struggles that really make us strong and create a beautiful tapestry of life.
Well, I wouldn't say, I really learned how weak I was
Mm,
through that, like I think with my daughter, like I sat there and I saw a little warrior, a little angel in there and like going through what she was going through. But I think when you're in a situation, especially as a man, you're like, God, I wish there was something like you would allow me to do right now. And I think in those spots where we just had to sit back and watch, it can be some of the hardest ones at the same time, because if there's something you can do with your hands and try to make a difference with it, like, man, that's easy, because like you can put effort into it. I think sometimes the hard ones are when you just have to sit back and trust. And man, that's really tough.
So we've talked about faith and how that's important to you. Can you talk about some values that you have learned through your faith or through your parents or through some of these experiences in life and the game that you've talked about? What's important to Craig?
And I would say relationships, as we sit here and talk about it. You bring a lot of people bring up stats and what I've been able to do numbers wise, and where I've been able to get to on a list of guys that put so much effort in as well. Um, it's not about those numbers, because there's going to be guys that come through and there's going to be guys who break those numbers, and then that's part of what sports are, you know. Goals are set, and then goals are achieved, and numbers are set, and then the numbers are passed in time. Um, but I think the value you get out of, of being around other people, is probably the most important. Because you can cherish numbers and cherish goals and have that be the only thing on your mind from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, which, there are times within the game that you have to have that on your mind. But there are a lot of other aspects about it as well. Like we said, being a good teammate, or sharing experiences or stories of a guy gave up a walk-off homer the night before or made an error the night before. I mean, playing the game for so long, you've seen that. You've seen hundreds of guys do the exact same thing or done it yourself, right? So is it more important for him to like sulk or um feel bad about himself for too long and let it affect him? Or is it more important to say, hey man, like, it's not that big a deal? Which I think at times within the game, we make things a bigger deal than they actually are, because we care so much about them. And not to say we shouldn't, but when you walk out that door, you got to remember that you got little ones at home, or a loved one at home, or your actual real life that you're going to live one day to go to, because we're not going to be putting that uniform on forever. And those are the things that are important. And if someone could say something like that about me, I'd be happy about it.
Mm. Yeah, what you're talking about is what Jesus calls us to do is lay down our life for another. And
Hmm.
that's a great example of how you get an opportunity to do that whenever someone's struggling, whether it's a teammate or whether it's a parent going through something similar that you've been through. But God gives us those struggles, I think, because they create a story for us to tell and a way to encourage others that are maybe going through something that they need an encouragement on.
Hmm. Very true.
So Craig, I want to shift here a little bit. We're talking about the relationship that we shared being a part of the Atlanta Braves a long time ago, and you and I have had a chance to do a lot of work together with Water Mission with the group that I've been working for, and you really came on board and had a heart for serving others, and have been a part of projects over in Uganda and just all around the world. And here, most recently in North Carolina, after Hurricane Helene came and really hit North Carolina hard, and there was a lot of flooding victims, and they had water shut off for still in some places don't have water. Here we are weeks after the storm, and I remember calling you up because you live nearby, and I just wanted to let you know about what was going on. And man, you just jumped right in there. And I'd love for you just to share a summary about our conversation and how God moved in your heart to get involved.
Yeah, I think if you say jumped in there, I think we were ready. I think we were ready to jump on something. We just didn't know what at the time. And when you called, and asked for, for some help, not actual work help, but doing some video stuff and being involved with Water Mission and being so close, I said yes. I was curious about what else we could do. We live out here on the farm, so we've acquired some equipment over the years to allow us to do some things. We were in the middle of doing some things, and the equipment was ready to go. And I just, you know, we threw it out there. Said, "Hey, can we come over there and work with our hands or work with our equipment?" Um, and it moved pretty quick. He said, "Let me get back with you. We might be able to make that happen." And we did. It took us a couple weeks to coordinate it, get all the help that we needed to go, getting all the supplies that we took. Um, but yeah, we were ready to jump on it. I mean, we had heard that there were a lot of people struggling. Um, we had heard other stories from people in our area who'd taken food over there and talked about how hard it was to get in and out. And felt like, it was being right down the road and having the means to get over there and the equipment to what I thought would help. So we jumped on it, and it was a learning experience, I can tell you that.
So you loaded up your equipment. You had tractors, you had skid steers. I think you
Oh yeah,
mentioned.
so we took two skid steers, a mini X, an enclosed trailer full of supplies. We had worked with the community center there and got on their website and found what supplies they needed and went by Costco and loaded up and headed out. Um, it was supposed to be about a 8 hour trip. Let's just say tires and equipment don't go together. So it took us about 12 hours to get there and about 12 hours to get back.
Wow. And
Yeah.
then you stayed. You met a farmer while you were there. You were helping him out,
Yeah,
and
we were put in contact with him with a guy on the ground, John Conway. He met a guy there, a farmer there that he had a lot of land and had a lot to work on, and gave me his contact. I called him and talked to him. He sent me a video of some of the mud wash that had came just one of many that came down, and he was concerned about it. And said, "All right, we'll bring the equipment that we need." Or, like I said, we thought we needed. We needed much bigger equipment than we took. The devastation there is kind of hard to explain because you see the gravel and the rock and the mud that all came through there. Um, and unless you see it like in person, it's hard to kind of realize how big some of those things are that came down the mountain. Um, yeah, it was a trip that I enjoyed with my family and friends who came over to help me out. Um, I think when it came to kind of make any kind of difference, I feel like we made more of a difference by bringing some of the supplies. But other than that, like we moved some wash around, I guess you can say. Some mudslide, tried to make it to where it didn't flood out a road. Put some trees into burn piles. Kind of worked our way up the mountain in doing so. Um, we did a lot of work and we put a lot of effort in. Um, it took us a while to figure out what direction we were going to go because when you look at mud and trees and rocks, like it was, it's kind of hard to put a game plan together.
and how
Um,
long were you there?
we were there for 3 days. Like
Okay.
we were there for 3 days. We could have been there for 3 weeks.
Hmm.
We heard many of the stories of people who came over to help and planned on being there for a week or two, and they moved the whole time. There was just no leaving for them. They got so invested and so in part of helping out that they're still there doing so. We heard story after story of people who are in that kind of situation.
Yeah. Was there one story that maybe stuck out about people that helped or people that needed help? Was there something that really stuck with you?
No. Hey, baby, can you shut the door? I'm almost done. Yeah, I told you to come back.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, by the time we got there, there had been a lot of cleanup,
Mm.
but you could still see everything that came through because it was still there. It hadn't been picked up. It had been put into piles, but it hadn't physically been picked up. Which I think they have picked it up since then. So I actually talked to Mr. Banks the other day, and he said they have started to pick it up, which is encouraging. But like the old farmer he is, he's like, well, it's going to be back there before you know it, because people still have so much to clean. Um, I mean, the stories. I mean, we really enjoyed. They were the family that we stayed at were really good to us. They gave us eggs and sausage to cook every morning out on our fire. So.
So you were
That
staying
was nice.
outside, or
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we had a
camper?
camper. Remember
Okay.
RV? So we weren't roughing it. We weren't
Yeah.
roughing it because there's an RV. Um, and we heard some stories that I would have a hard time talking about on like I think a lot of people have read them on social media, which I don't do. Um, just of horror stories of family members being trapped. I think the week that we got there, which it was a couple of days before Halloween. They were still finding trailers that had been submerged from some of the gravel and mud that had come down the mountain. Um, it's just for to be so far out of something so close to home. I think at times you are set back for a second, saying, "Hey, this is still happening." And they're still finding people, and there's still people with a lot of problems and a lot of need, and we're this far out. I think that's kind of hard to. It was kind of hard to wrap the vibe while we were there too, because there's so many people and so much need. Um, that there are a lot of people there that were grateful. Obviously, they're very grateful that still have some of the things that they did, but there are a ton of people there that had a concern feeling that what they still did have wasn't going to be theirs for much longer, um, just because of the way the waters went. And it's you can't reroute where the water's going now. Like it is what it is. So unfortunately, that's going to make a lot of that area probably be controlled by um, the waterways. Um, and so there's a lot of people with that concern there as well, because we were right in the mouth of the mountain where a lot of it started and got pretty deep and continued through. Um, so there's a lot of unknown for people there right now. Even if it is, I've gotten what I had back to a certain extent. Like, is this how long am I going to be able to keep it like this? So that was a pretty big concern that we got while we were over there.
Craig, this may seem like a silly question to you because you know why you have a heart for people and helping. But I'm just thinking of our audience listening. There's
Mhm.
probably a lot of people that listen to this story and go, "Why in the world would a Major League Baseball player give up a week of his off season to go help people that he doesn't even know?" And I'm wondering if maybe you can just put a put an
I mean,
explanation
I don't, I
together.
don't, I don't know. I think at times I think we had spoken like you go to church and you hear sermons. Um, my pastor had just recently been going through Psalm 23. Um, we can only do so much. You can only do so much. Like as a kid, I grew up with nothing. My goal was to be a professional baseball player, and here I am. I did it way higher than I ever thought I would, or whatever my dream was as a kid. I've already exceeded that, and I'm past that. But that doesn't mean everything in my life, I all of a sudden is just happiness and greatness and goodness. I think I realize you realize if you can accomplish so much for yourself, but if you can do things for others, I think a lot of times that not only can be gratifying, like I think sometimes some of the smallest things that I've done, I mean, I'm wearing this hat. I do I participate in hunts with kids, and we allow kids to come out to our property and hunt. I get more happy and excited for those kids um, to be able to go do that than I do for anything that I put on the wall behind me. So, and because that was for, obviously I had my teammates, but a lot of that was for me. And if I can do some things for other people, man, that's a lot more gratifying and enjoyable than getting anything for myself.
Hmm. Very cool. I love that, how you explain that. And the real gratitude that we get, the real life experiences by giving away, not by collecting things for ourselves.
Mhm.
What, Craig, as we finish out this interview, and I really appreciate your time and just a chance to hear your heart, what do you hope people remember about you when we talk about your legacy?
Mhm. I knew when to get serious, but I was mostly just a lot of fun and a happier person. I cared about the people that were around me. I bring this up a lot, and someone told me and it stuck with me. They said the most important person in your life is the person in front of you at the moment. So living your life that, man, our time together right now is this most important moment in my life right now because I'm actually living my life if I live it out like that because I actually care about what you have to say and you're being a lot more personal. That stuck with me. So if I can be more personal with the person I have in front of me instead of having everything else that's going on in life, which for all of us is a lot, and not having that on my mind in the moment, I think that's the most you can give somebody because that's really all you can give them.
Craig, thank you so much for living out your testimony. Thank you for sharing with us about why you do what you do to serve others. And I pray and hope that you have many more years in baseball and serving others. And just really appreciate you getting in the game.
Well, I really appreciate it. I hope everything you just said comes true, but if not, I fully enjoy trying to figure out how to get a lock on that door and keep on talking to you.
Nah, let those little kids keep coming in because, like you say, I mean, these moments are so special, and there's a reason they come in there because you're supposed to be giving them the attention and taking that moment captive.
Oh, absolutely.